Imagine this, someone holding your photo, not to cherish you, not to honor you, but to hand it over in the shadows, to a force they thought would erase you. Picture it, a darkened room, a trembling hand, your image placed like an offering, as if ink on paper could ever hold the weight of your spirit. They were convinced that with your face in their possession, they had found the shortcut to your downfall, a key to unlock the gates of your destiny. But here is the truth. What they believed was an entry point was in fact a detonator. The very instant your photo touched that altar, something ancient stirred. The air shifted. The silence thickened. It was not a ritual beginning. It was a sentence written against themselves. They thought they were unleashing destruction on you, but instead they awakened a law in the unseen. Because your essence cannot be summoned, stolen, or trapped. Your image carries fire that does not burn you. It burns those who dare to misuse it. That night, they didn't open a door into your life. They slammed shut the door on their own. And this is why what happened terrified them far more than they will ever confess. Chosen one, lean in, because what you are about to hear will explain why every attempt against you has only made your spirit louder, brighter, more untouchable. Before we go deeper into this revelation, I ask you to do 3 things right now. Press like, because light must always overcome the dark. Subscribe, because your journey of awakening is not meant to be walked alone. And comment 99, because 99 is the seal of completion, the number that declares that no weapon formed against you will ever prosper. This is your confirmation. Stay until the end. They thought they were clever. They thought they had discovered a secret shortcut to break you without ever facing you. In their minds, all it would take was your photograph, an object they believed could carry the weight of your soul. They whispered your name, each syllable dripping with envy and hidden malice. They lit their candles, confident that wax and flame could open a gateway to your downfall. Their hands trembled, not from fear but from the thrill of believing they were in control. Yet what they never calculated, what they could not even imagine, is that your essence does not live in paper. It does not bleed through ink. It is not confined to an image. Your spirit is carved into eternity, engraved in scars that became shields, branded in storms that became fire. In that room, they thought they had power. They thought they were hunters, and you were prey. But the moment they raised your image, the atmosphere rebelled against them. The air itself grew heavy, pressing down on their chests, stealing their breath. The candles flickered, not as a sign of obedience, but as a warning. They expected the ritual to bend reality, to pull you down into weakness. Instead, the very fabric of the unseen began to reject their actions. They had not called a weapon into existence. They had summoned consequences. Because when your photo was placed before them, it was not an invitation into your life. It was a mirror reflecting their intentions. And in that reflection, they saw their own corruption magnified. Every word they spoke bounced back into the silence. Every symbol they drew turned hollow. The power they tried to command refused to obey, not because it was weak, but because what you carry cannot be touched by hands that operate in envy. They thought they were striking at your foundation, but they ended up striking at their own. This is what they didn't understand. Your life has been forged in pain, refined in trials, tested in nights when no one saw your tears, and every scar you carry became armor. Every storm you endured became a crown of fire around you. Your frequency does not bow to darkness, it exposes it. The harder they pressed, the more resistance they felt. What they summoned turned against them, because the spiritual world knows order. And in that order, your name is not a target. It is a warning. Imagine their faces as they realized something was wrong. The room colder, their hands trembling, their voices breaking as they tried to repeat the incantations. Yet the more they pushed, the more silence swallowed them whole. They thought they could control the unseen, but instead, they had awakened a presence that would not move. They believed they were crafting your downfall, but in reality, they were standing in the shadow of their own. And here's the part that unsettled them the most. They could not explain it. They could not rationalize why nothing worked. They replayed the ritual in their minds, checked every candle, every word, every gesture. But deep down, in the place they dare not confess, they knew the truth. The failure wasn't in the ritual. The failure was in their choice of target. They dared to place your name, your face, your essence on the altar of their envy, and the unseen rejected it. So while they left that room confused, restless and terrified, you remained untouched, strengthened by the very attempt meant to harm you. And this is where the mystery deepens, chosen one, because if their first move already backfired this way, what do you think happened next? They expected chaos to obey their command. They expected shadows to rise at the sound of your name. They thought that when your photo touched that altar, forces from the depths would leap forward, eager to devour you. But instead, silence. A silence so thick it pressed against their ears, crawling under their skin, suffocating their confidence. The entity they trusted, the one they had called before, refused to move. It did not stir. It did not bow to their whispers. It did not even look at them. Its focus, its awareness, its recognition turned toward you, not as prey, not as a victim, but as something it dared not touch. That moment shattered their illusions. In the spiritual world, not everything bends to desire. Not every name is accessible. And yours, chosen one, carries a weight that even darkness will not cross. They had assumed your photo was a key. Instead, it became a banner announcing your rank, because your spirit is not wandering, desperate or unguarded. It is sealed by battles you survived, by light that refuses to dim, by a fire that has already tested you and declared you incorruptible. The unseen knows this. The unseen respects this. And in that respect lies the terror that fell upon them. Picture it, the ritual unfolding, their voices rising, their candles burning low. Yet nothing, not a flicker of the power they expected. Instead, a suffocating awareness filled the room, reminding them of an ancient truth. Even shadows recognize authority. Even chaos respects boundaries. What they called upon, understood instantly. It could not touch you. It would not touch you. To cross that line would be to violate a law deeper than their arrogance could comprehend. And so the atmosphere turned against them. The silence wasn't empty. It was charged, like thunder waiting in the clouds, like fire coiled behind the veil. Every second dragged longer. Their hearts pounded. They glanced at each other, searching for reassurance, but found only fear reflected back. The presence they thought would serve them was now their judge. The spirit they trusted to obey their envy instead bowed, not before them, but before the seal over your life. This is the part they will never speak aloud. They will never admit that when they called for destruction, what answered was recognition. That when they tried to weaponize your image, the very darkness they invoked refused because it knew your rank was beyond its reach. You are not perfect, no. But your essence has been refined into something untouchable. And that night, in the silence that choked them, they saw proof. It was not you who trembled, it was them. Not you who was exposed, it was them. And the deeper terror was not that their plan failed, but that their enemy, the very entity they bowed to, acknowledged you as higher than them. Imagine the fracture in their minds as they realized this truth, that even the shadows they rely on know who you are. And here is where the mystery tightens its grip. If darkness itself has marked you as off-limits, if the forces they tried to unleash bowed instead of striking, then what happens when they try again? What happens when envy refuses to surrender, yet every path forward leads only to recognition of your authority? That is the revelation that keeps them awake at night. And that is the cliff where we now stand, because what came next was not silence. It was the beginning of a reversal they never saw coming. They believed the night would end with your ruin. They were certain the ritual would crack open your defenses, drain your strength, and leave you exposed. They expected to hear whispers of victory echoing through their minds. Instead, the silence they first ignored began to crawl into their bones. Something had shifted, something irreversible. The very shadows they thought they commanded began to detach from obedience and turn against them. At first it came subtly, a heaviness in the air that refused to lift, a chill in their homes even when the fire was burning, the sensation of being watched when no one was there. But then it grew. Their sleep fractured into fragments filled with images they could not explain, hands reaching from darkness, mirrors showing faces that weren't their own, voices calling their names in tones that made their blood freeze. They tried to dismiss it. They told themselves it was imagination, paranoia, side effects of playing with things they didn't fully understand. But deep inside, they knew better. In the spiritual world, every action is a contract, and every contract requires payment. That night, when they laid your photograph on the altar, they signed with their own breath. They believed the offering was your image, but the truth was far more dangerous. The offering was them. The power they invoked, realizing it could not touch you, demanded something else. And so it turned its gaze on the only ones left vulnerable, the very hands that summoned it. Loss began to ripple through their lives. Doors they thought would open slammed shut. Relationships soured without reason. Finances slipped through their fingers like sand. Health began to falter, weighed down by invisible chains. And though they never confessed it openly, every misfortune carried the same reminder. They had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Because the moment they tried to hand over your essence, they handed over their own stability. This is the irony that terrifies them still. What they crafted as a weapon against you became a trap against themselves. They thought they were clever, that they had discovered an easy path to break you. But the path they walked was lined with thorns, and every step deeper cut into their own destiny. The backfire was not delayed. It was immediate, though invisible at first. Their laughter from that night has long since turned to silence, their confidence into sleepless nights, their arrogance into gnawing fear. Understand this. You never had to lift a finger. You never had to defend yourself with force. The system of the unseen responded for you. The shield of your essence redirected every arrow, every curse, every word, until the storm they launched circled back with tenfold intensity. And now they walk under a cloud they cannot shake, because the very forces they worshipped marked them as the price to be paid. And here lies the deepest truth. You were never their victim. You were their mirror. By choosing you as their target, they exposed their own corruption. By lifting your image, they lifted a sentence upon themselves. And every time they close their eyes now, they are reminded of that moment, the moment their plan collapsed and their own lives began to fracture. But this is only the beginning. Because while they try to run from the consequences, while they attempt to bury the evidence of their failure, the weight of what they summoned refuses to leave them. And if this was only the first wave of backlash, imagine what happens when the unseen demands the full price of their betrayal. Every attempt they made was built on a false assumption, that you were vulnerable, that your essence could be captured, that your spirit could be reduced to paper and ink. They believed your photo was a door, but what they held in their trembling hands was a warning carved into the unseen. Do not touch. Because your life is not ordinary ground, it is consecrated territory. Every scar etched into your story, every betrayal you endured, every night you thought you would collapse but still rose at dawn, became stones in the wall that surrounds your soul. That wall is not made of fear. It is forged from survival. It is an armor invisible to the eyes of men, but undeniable to the eyes of spirits. This is why their efforts crumbled before they even began. They thought they were clever, that ritual and repetition could undo what years of storms had sealed. But here is the mystery. Scars in the visible world look like weakness, yet in the invisible world, they shine like seals of authority. You are not marked by fragility. You are marked by fire. Every time you survived what was meant to end you, your frequency was raised higher. And now it is not just high, it is untouchable. They do not understand that the world of shadows functions by rank. Just as armies march under banners, spirits recognize seals. And when your name is spoken, when your essence is invoked, the mark is revealed. It is a declaration. This life cannot be trespassed. That's why their rooms grew colder. That's why silence drowned their chants. Because the unseen saw the sign carved over you. A sign that told them their authority ended at your door. Think about this. The very photo they thought would be their weapon became the evidence of their mistake. It did not carry weakness, it carried your history. The invisible realm does not see what human eyes see. Where they saw an image, the unseen saw a testimony. The paper held the echoes of your victories, the fingerprints of the storms you endured, the vibration of a soul that refused to be broken. To them, your photo was access. To the spirit world, it was an alarm, and this is why the darkness paused. It was not hesitation, it was recognition. The seal over your life is not something you put on and take off. It is not borrowed or bought. It was forged in silence, when no one else was watching, in the hours where only heaven saw your tears. And because of those hours, because of those wounds, you were set apart. That mark became a signal, a message written in fire. You may look, but you cannot touch. You may whisper, but you cannot break. You may envy, but you cannot invade. What unsettled them most was not that their plan failed, but that they were confronted with evidence of your rank. They expected an open door, but they found a locked gate with flames on the other side. And that flame was not fragile. It was the very fire that had refined you, the fire that proved you are no longer prey. You are a force, and now their fear has multiplied. Because once the unseen recognizes someone as untouchable, that recognition spreads. Every spirit they try to call, every shadow they attempt to command, remembers. They remember the seal. They remember the fire. They remember the mark that even darkness cannot erase. This is why, chosen one, you walk without fear. Not because the attacks never come, but because none of them can land. Not because they never try, but because the mark speaks louder than their whispers. And as they wrestle with confusion, as they replay their failure in silence, they begin to realize a truth far heavier than defeat. They were never fighting you. They were fighting the seal around you, and that seal cannot be broken. But if they thought the mark was their greatest obstacle, they have yet to face the most terrifying truth, the mirror of their own reflection that your essence forces them to see. And that is where the story turns darker still. Here lies the greatest twist of all. They believed they were reaching for you. They believed their ritual was pulling at your soul, opening cracks in your defenses, tearing holes in your essence. But the truth is far more dangerous. They never had access to you at all. What they encountered was not your fragility, it was their own reflection. That photograph they lifted, trembling in their hands, did not open a door to your spirit. It opened a mirror. And in that mirror, every secret they tried to bury came crawling to the surface. Your image became more than paper. It became judgment. It revealed the envy pulsing in their veins. It magnified the weakness they hide behind arrogance. It reflected the emptiness that gnaws at their existence. They wanted to break you, but instead the ritual exposed how broken they already were. They thought they were summoning destruction, but what looked back at them was the evidence of their own decay. This is the terror they cannot admit. The more they stared, the more the reflection shifted. What they saw was not you collapsing. What they saw was themselves unraveling. Their words, their symbols, their gestures, all meaningless against the reality standing before them. They discovered too late that your essence is not an open field to be trampled. It is sacred ground, guarded by laws older than their envy. Every time they pushed, the mirror pushed back. Every attempt to strike only revealed their powerlessness. And here is the mystery that still haunts them. They never fought you. They fought the emptiness inside themselves. They thought they were waging war on your destiny, but in truth, they were staring at the ruins of their own. The ritual didn't weaken your foundation. It shattered theirs. What they witnessed that night was not your fall, but their end. That is why they left trembling, not because they had seen your collapse, but because they had looked into the abyss of their own. They realized that they had no power to touch you, no key to unlock your soul, no voice loud enough to drown out the seal written over your life. And in that realization, their fear was born, because if they could not break you at your weakest, if they could not invade even through your image, then they knew one terrifying truth. They never truly had power at all. And yet, chosen one, this revelation is only part of the story, because what followed this moment of recognition did not end with silence. Something far greater, far heavier was still waiting. And when it arrived, it would not just confirm your untouchability, it would announce it to the world in a way that no enemy could ever deny. They gave your photo to a demon, but what happened terrified them. They didn't see your defeat, they witnessed their own. And from that night on, every time they remember your name, they don't feel power. They feel fear, because now they know the truth. You are untouchable. You are chosen, sealed with a fire that no ritual can break. Listen carefully. Your life is not fragile. Your story is not a coincidence. Your essence is not vulnerable. What you carry within is a divine testimony, a burning altar that neither envy nor hatred nor darkness can extinguish. Walk without fear, because even the densest darkness recognizes the light that burns within you. If this message resonates with your spirit, write in the comments. Fire, because only those who survive the flames know what it means to rise stronger than ever. May your voice not tremble. May your faith not waver. May your step not retreat. You are not a victim, you are a sign. You are not a shadow, you are a banner. You are not silence, you are thunder, and let it be marked in the invisible. Even the darkness itself bowed before your light.